All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are getting into one of the biggest questions out there. What is the actual chemistry of life? We're going to peel back the layers of biology and look at the simple, really elegant chemical rules that build everything, from a single cell all the way up to a lion. So let's start with a big question to get us going.
On the surface, it seems obvious, right? I mean, one breathes and moves and hunts. The other, well, it just sits there. But if you were to break them both down to their most basic atoms, the differences get a lot more subtle and, honestly, a lot more interesting. What is that essential chemical spark that separates biology from just geology?
So, to get to the bottom of that, we first need to agree on what we're even talking about. Before we can really get the chemistry of life, we have to ask, what even is life? What are the universal properties that all living things seem to share? Well, it turns out living things have four key signatures. First, life is incredibly complex and super organized. Think about the intricate network inside a cell. It's just mind-boggling. Second, every little part has a specific job to do, a purpose, whether it's a tiny protein folding into a precise shape or a heart pumping blood. Third, living things are basically energy processing machines. They're constantly taking in energy from food or the sun to power everything they do. And finally, and this one is maybe the most amazing of all, life can make more of itself. And this image, wow, it just lays that first point out perfectly. You see, we start with these simple little atoms, which build molecules. Those molecules team up to form macromolecules, which then organize themselves into cells. The cells form tissues, then organs, then whole organisms, and eventually, the entire biosphere. It's this absolutely breathtaking pyramid of complexity, all built from the ground up.
Okay, so if life is built from atoms, the next obvious question is, which ones? Does life just randomly scoop up whatever's available in the environment? Or is there a more selective process going on? The answer, it turns out, is pretty surprising.
And when you put them side by side like this, the difference is just whoa. It's night and day. The Earth's crust, the dirt and rocks, it's mostly oxygen and silicon. But look at us. Over 99% of the atoms in our bodies are just four elements: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. So life doesn't just use what's common, it's incredibly picky. Which, of course, leads to the big question. Why these four? Out of all the elements in the whole periodic table, what is so special about this particular quartet that they became the foundation for literally every living thing on our planet? And the answer is just so beautifully simple. It all comes down to strength and efficiency. These are some of the lightest elements around, which is great. But the crucial part is that they form incredibly strong and stable covalent bonds. That's where atoms share their electrons. This creates really durable molecules that can survive inside the chaotic, busy environment of a living cell. Now, even within that elite group of four, one element is the undisputed king. It's the one that provides the fundamental framework, the molecular scaffolding that everything else is built on. And I'm talking, of course, about carbon. Carbon's superpower is its sheer versatility. It's like the ultimate Lego brick. It can form four of those super strong covalent bonds. And as you can see here, that means it can make four single bonds, or a double bond and two singles, or even a triple bond. This chemical flexibility is what lets it build a practically infinite variety of complex molecules. But here's where it gets really cool. It's not just about the number of bonds, it's about their shape. When carbon makes four single bonds, they don't just lie flat on a page. No way. They point out to the corners of a three-dimensional shape called a tetrahedron. And this 3D geometry, it is absolutely fundamental to the shape of life itself. Because of that 3D blueprint, that tetrahedral shape, carbon atoms can link together to form an unbelievable variety of molecular skeletons. They can create long, straight chains, they can make complex, branched, tree-like structures, and they can form super stable rings. This is where all the immense structural diversity of biology comes from. Okay, so we've got our building blocks. We've got these stable, super versatile carbon backbones. But a pile of bricks is not a house, right? It's just a pile of bricks. How do these molecules go from being simple structures to actually carrying the instructions for life? Well, the secret lies in a property called directionality. Now, that sounds complicated, but it's really not. Think of a long chain molecule, a polymer. If one end of that chain is chemically different from the other, kind of like it has a head and a tail, then that polymer has direction. and that one simple property changes absolutely everything. This quote from our source material just hits the nail on the head. As soon as a molecule has direction, the sequence of its building blocks suddenly matters. It's just like how the letters CAT mean something completely different from ACT. The order of the molecular units can now actually encode information. It's not just a chain anymore, it's a sentence. And of course, that brings us to the most famous information molecule of all, DNA. See how it has a 5' end and a 3' end? That's its directionality. And the very specific sequence of those bases, the A, T, C, and G, running along that directional backbone is nothing less than the genetic code. It's the blueprint for an entire organism. So we have strong bonds creating the backbones and a specific sequence creating the information. You'd think that's pretty much the whole story. But here's the final and frankly beautiful paradox of biochemistry. The complex, three-dimensional shapes that actually bring these molecules to life, they aren't held together by those strong bonds at all. They're held together by something much, much weaker. So let me introduce you to the real glue of life. These 4 types of interactions are known as weak forces. They're the subtle little pushes and pulls that exist between molecules, and believe it or not, they are responsible for pretty much all of the amazing complexity we see in biology.
And just look at the difference in power here. It's not even close. A covalent bond is like super glue, with an energy of around 400. These weak forces, they're more like sticky notes, 10 to 100 times weaker. They're constantly breaking and reforming. By their very nature, they're temporary. Take hydrogen bonds, for example, which you see here between water molecules. A single H bond is incredibly fragile. You could flick it away. But when you get billions and billions of them working together, like in a glass of water or holding the 2 strands of your DNA together, their collective strength is absolutely immense. It's a perfect case of strength in numbers.
And this weakness is actually a superpower. Because these forces are so delicate, a whole bunch of them have to line up perfectly for 2 molecules to stick together. This is the entire basis for what we call molecular recognition. One molecule can have a shape that is a perfect complement to another, letting dozens of these weak interactions form all at once. It's the ultimate lock and key system.
So let's just put it all together. It's this beautiful, logical flow. First, the information stored in the sequence of a molecule, like a protein, tells it how to fold. Then, thousands of those tiny, weak forces are what actually do the folding and hold that final shape. And finally, that specific 3D shape is what lets the protein do its job by recognizing and binding to exactly the right partners. It's a direct line from information to function.
So we end with this final thought to chew on. Life isn't some static, rigid crystal held together by unbreakable bonds. It's a dynamic, flowing, adaptable system held together by this huge network of fleeting, temporary interactions. It's strong, but it's also flexible. It's stable, but it's always changing. Life, at its most fundamental chemical level, is really a dance of powerful weakness. What do you think that says about what it means to be alive?